Hello everyone, so welcome to this new video, and this video is all about IAM. So it's known as GCP Identity and Access Management. So this is actually a cloud security framework that is provided you by Google in GCP, and this basically defines who has what access. And when we say access, it means roles and permissions to any kind of resource. Resource could be virtual machine, resource could be GCP, bucket, file, folder, anything. Can be anything. So this is like I term it like who can do what on which resource. Here, who is basically identity, like someone, and the roles are and the permissions are something you define, and then on which resource the permissions are granted. So this is a quick, I mean, description. So why we require IAM? So we understand this thing like any GCP project or any cloud project. Uh, we have accounts, and those accounts are used to manage the services, uh, do any kind of development, deployment. There could be multiple works that people do or automate, or one resource can require the access of other resource in order to complete some task. Then we need some permissions that actually restrict the access of these resources, these workflows. Because if anyone has any access, it could create so much of ambiguity, or mostly what happens, uh, if everyone has the same permission, anyone can do anything, and then it's really impossible to manage the resources. So in every cloud platform, we have a concept of identity and access management that specifically gives some roles and permissions to any person. Any account could be a service account. Google could be a group of users, good group of service accounts. I mean, to someone to use a resource in a way like the person has some restricted access, only some access or some permissions are given to that particular person or identity to do its operation on that resource. So that restrict, and this restriction is very important when it comes to running a enterprise level ACP application. So that's the purpose of IAM. Okay. Now, when we say identity, so I already explained like what identity is, but these are some types of identities that we can use. So let's say when you create a GCP, a GCP account, a first time, or and you are using your email address to creating your account. I'm not talking about enterprise level or G Suite or something. I'm talking about simple personal level application that you create for learning, because that's a important point to note. Like whenever you create your own account for learning or for personal purpose for a single person, you will not get a hierarchy of organization. So, and then that is a difference of having an G Suite with enterprise level application account and as a personal account. So that's a difference. And here the email ID that you use your Google account. So you, whatever the first email ID you try to create your GCP resource, will have every access. It is a super admin. And then suppose you want to delegate some of your tasks or some of your works to any subordinate, any person who is working with you. Then you, what you do, you will assign some roles, some permissions to specific resources or workflows, and then you assign that person's email ID to that role, and then that person when logins will be doing only those things that you have allowed. So that's how this thing works. So this is for the personal thing. Now service account is something we know, like if a resource, let's say a compute engine, has to access some file or some blob from the GCP storage or bucket, then this virtual machine requires a service account. So that service account is something is used to access the resources, and for that accessing a resource you will provide specific permissions. I mean, you create a service account, then you assign some roles, and that roles will define what is the extent of access, what is the level of permission is given for that service account, and now your one resource will use the service account to access the other resource. So this is how service account works. And group is something, I would say, let's say there are 50 people, and you have to give some generic kind of permissions. Suppose they are auditors, account auditors, and they have to only view some logs and all those things, and there are 4 and 5 persons as auditor has been working with you. So what will you do? It's impossible, or it's not, very easy or a good practice to assign roles to each and every person who is doing the audit. What you will do, you will create a group, you will assign that role to the group, and then you add those users to the group. So this is known as the group. And Google Identity and G Suite are something we can understand as organization level thing. When you have multiple users, I mean thousands of users, and those users have to have the access of maybe a Google Workspace or something like that, then in that conditions this Google Identity work. Actually, it works with like LDAP services, Azure Active Directory services to provide identity, and works as an identity provider that allows those users to access your resources. So that's a different process that altogether works to give something we can say as SSO kind of thing for your Google resources. So that's a different thing. Then there is also this external identities that is again used to create users and assign roles to that third party users so they can access your resources. So these are some kind of types of identities that generally we use in our GCP infrastructure. Let's understand about roles. So before understanding the roles, I would recommend to look into the GCP console. So let's go to the console and understand these role things over there. So we are here in the IAM and we are in the roles section. So you see, these are the list of roles. So there are approx more than 1,000 roles, like 1,972, and it can be, increasing. It keeps adding. So there are multiple roles over there. So what these roles are? So let these roles are actually a collection of permissions. So if I click on this thing, access approval approver, so let's click on it, and you see, so these are some permissions assigned to this particular role. So this is how roles are created. So each role, if you want to create your own role, you can create your own role, but then you have to provide permissions to that role. So for us, uh, these bundle of permissions actually create a role, and these roles are then attached to identity. In our case, can be a user, can be a group, can be a resource or a service account, and then that resource will behave according to the permissions. Okay, so let's see the other things, like generally there are three types, as we can you can if you can divide the roles. So first one is basic one. So these basic ones are generally, known as primitive ones, and these are created when the IAM was like not that advanced. So these are legacy roles, and generally these roles are not recommended today to go when you're going to production. Then it's really important to avoid the legacy roles, because they are generally large broad roles, and that is not recommended when we are going to production. Then we have this predefined roles. So the list I just shown you on the console, those are predefined, like they are created by Google for you for specific purposes, and what purpose suits you, you can directly, use that roles and bind that roles to users. So that was one other thing. Then comes the custom one. So I have already shown you how to you have a option to create that your own role. So you can create your own role, and then you can assign the permissions. The list of permissions are available there. You just have to choose that and create your own, custom role using those permissions. So generally, it depends on your use case, how you are designing your architecture, and then you can select the roles according to that. Okay, so now let's look into this IAM policy thing. So generally, it's just a simple thing. When you have your identities created, you like your accounts, and when you bind your identities with some rules, like you have assigned some role to any user, then that whole combination is known as IAM policy. So that's what a policy is all about. It could be a service account, it could be a user, it could be a group. When any role is assigned to it, that's whole, both things are known as IAM policy. So generally, IAM policies are defined in JSON and YML format. So this is in a common example where these are the roles and these are the members for which the bindings are done. So it's how this binding is done. Now let's look into the next thing, that is kind of detail, like how IAM works. So generally, this flow is all about a request thing and how the decisions are made. So generally, when a request come, it could be a user, it could be a service account that makes a request to GCP resource. And what happens, like whenever request comes, first thing happens is authentication. So first of all, the credentials are verified. Uh, it could be a key, it could be a OAuth login, whatever it is. First of all, the authentication occurs that allows and identifies that, yeah, this person is actually the valid one. Now what happens, then the authorization steps come. Now this is the place where IAM is used, and this thing, when suppose you let's take an example. You are in the GCP console, you logged in into the GCP console, like authorization, or sorry, authentication is done. You're now logged in. Now what you can do in console now, like what access you have, that is where IAM comes in the picture, and it defines, like this identity has these roles or these permissions. According to that, you will be able to do anything, or any screen, any click of button, any deletion of anything will happen. Either that will be allowed, or it will be denied. So that's a simple flow, like how IAM works. There are different aspects as well. Maybe any service account is attached to any VM, and that VM needs to access some resource or some file in a cloud bucket. But then the IAM policies for that service account is not enough. So that IAM policy, if that is not enough and not appropriate, then that virtual machine will not be able to access that file from the that bucket. So it's about, this happens outside the GCP, or it also happens inside the GCP. In all the places, IAM actually works and gives the direction, like what is allowed and what is not allowed. Now, while we have understood much of the IAM things, now it's important to understand the best practices. The first best practice is recommended, and this is often asked in interview questions, like that first thing is list privilege. So what means a list privilege? Look, like it's like whenever you are giving anything, any permission to any identity, it's important to give the least one. You cannot just make admin to anyone. You know, we make someone owner whenever it's required. You just provide very less important. Maybe you can provide the access of viewer. That's not a big deal, but you cannot give a admin role to any identity. So always try to give the least privilege roles to any identity. Now the second thing is the user service account. So whenever a service account is created, it's important and it's mandatory to use the service accounts only for the application. When I say application, it could be a resource in GCP, could be a compute engine, Kubernetes, uh, or buckets. So inter GCP communications, then where resources are talking, generally it is recommended and it's best practice to use service accounts. Now, when we talk about creating custom roles, I already, explained why custom roles are important. We already have like predefined roles, but sometime it's important, like you want only some specific roles to some specific resources. How will you do that? You have to create custom roles. So it's important and it's really very uh, good practice. Like you are designing a architecture from the scratch, then always try to create custom roles and assign those roles to groups. If let's say there are multiple people trying to do the same thing, don't assign that particular custom role that you have created to each user. Try to create a group, add those person or to the group, and then assign the roles to that group. That's a good practice. Now, always do the audit logging. Reason, whenever you have some issues, maybe security issues or anything, you are able to see like what has been done by whom and where the permissions are not appropriate. So that will allow you to identify, and then you can easily, fix this thing. Now, the fifth thing is about the organization policy. So in the next slide and next topic, I will be discussing about this hierarchy thing. But for now, just understand this, like whenever you have to apply something, let's say you don't want anyone in the organization to create service accounts. How will you stop it? You cannot just go and remove the service account permissions and roles from every user that you have. In that picture, this organization policies things comes. You just create organization policy, and that policy will go down the hierarchy, and no one will be, I mean, will be able to create service accounts anymore. So always have this organization policies implemented if you have enterprise level of GCP account. Okay, so these are some best practices. Now we will navigate to our next thing that is related to the IAM policy hierarchy. So what this hierarchy is all about? So we know, like in GCP there is a kind of hierarchy, and that hierarchy is a resource hierarchy. So what comes first? First thing is organization, and then there are folders created inside an organization, and then there are projects inside a folder. And when I say projects, one folder can have multiple projects, and then these folders we see here can be created multiple times. Like there could be a multiple folder in one organization, multiple projects in one folder, and multiple resources in one project. So whatever, let's say for example you have defined a policy, you have created a policy at organization level, then the folder, each folder, projects, each project, each resource will be inheriting that particular policy. So it goes down from organization to resources. So it's important to create organization policies, so you don't have to worry about like how each resource will have the same policy. You just create at the organization level, and everyone have will be having that policy. Now, uh, as we know, like policy inherits down the hierarchy, but there is a nature. Let's say the project, let's say for example there is one resource. Let's say there's a VM that has six uh, permissions or six roles assigned to it. Now what will happen if organization policies are added at the top of that policies? Then there is a union happens. Like it's not like the policies that are assigned to resource will go away. No, it will be work as a union of it. Like it will also include the permission coming from the top. So that's how it works. It doesn't negates any policy, it just makes the union of it. Okay, so this is how this policy hierarchy works in IAM. And this is a simple table I've created to understand like how this thing work. Now we will take a look at the most important thing, that is workload identity federation. So this is an advanced concept that I wanted to, make you familiar, because this is something also a part of GCP and most of other cloud providers. So actually, this is a concept, I would say, that allows anyone from any service of any GCP or any other, like AWS or Azure, can log into any other service or any other website, any other portal by just one username or password. So what this is and how it works. So I would like to tell you like how these things works. But before going to explain this in detail, I would like to show this thing in GCP first. So So this is a place in GCP that we call it as workload identity pools. So this is a place where we generally connect and configure uh, a different source of username password, so that anyone using Azure can access bucket in GCP. So how these things happen? So there are some steps that we use. So I'll just show this you quickly. Then I will go to the details and descriptions in the slides. So let's start this. So right now you have to provide a pool name. Let's see, name it as test. Okay. Uh, you can leave this description empty. Now, when you click continue, so you have created a pool of identity. So what is identity pool? Identity pool is a place where all the username, groups, roles, and other things are stored. Identity pool never stores the password. When I say identity pool, it means the username and other details of user other than password are stored here. So let's say you have a on-prem application running, and that has its own Active Directory, and Active Directory is all about where you store your username, password, roles, groups, all information about the user. So what happens? This identity pool right now here will be synced with the on-prem, and all the username and other details except the password is synced to this identity pool. And then this GCP will also have the same user details what your on-prem has. Okay, so let's create a service provider. So these are some service provider that you can use. So let's say for now it could be a SAML, it could be OpenID. So these are some type of provider tools that consist of authentication channel that generally gives you the token, and that token is and that token, whatever your Active Directory at your on-prem has provided you, will be used by this GCP ultimately to authenticate the user at, I mean, eventually. So we provide the provider. It could be a SAML, it could be a OpenID. So these details are provided, and you provide the provider name, the URL where it has to validate it, the JSON, if it's some sample file if you have, that is also provided. So these are some configurations we do. Okay, and then we configure it. So by this way we are creating an identity pool here, where it will keep all the records of the user, and when that user, let's say from on-prem, when someone tries to log into the GCP, then GCP has already the information of this user. And what will happen, it will receive the token with the user details, then it will again try to authenticate the same user to using this tool, and it will allow that user, depending upon the all the informations with him, and then it will be easy to log in that user here. So in this scenario, user don't have to provide password GCP. It's all been done at the on-prem, and the GCP will allow that user to log in. So this is a one way of getting access of GCP services from any other service, and this is a feature of IAM. So that's what I am going to explain. So let's go back to our slide. So quickly I have explained it the whole flow. I think everything was not clear, but let's break this three in one by one so you can understand this thing easily. So first of all, let's break this thing. So first term we know in this all process and all flow is Active Directory. So what is an Active Directory? So think of a database like a place where you have stored your user information. Okay, and this information is like username, password, email, roles, groups. So this is the basic information of any user in any database or any environment or any application we have. So let's say for now you have your application running in local on-prem, and all your database and all the informations are stored in the on-prem thing. So username, password is stored there. So your on-prem application, your on-prem system is considered here as an Active Directory because it has those information. Okay, now we have this identity provider thing. So what is this identity provider? So what identity provider does, let's say a system or a service that verifies the user identity and reliably informs other applications about who that user is. Okay, so like let's say take an example, like when you log in with Google in any web portal or any application, you must have seen login with Google or login with Facebook. So that thing is actually the same concept what we are understanding here. Actually, identity provider handles and authenticates and authorize the users without exposing the password. So it's a something, it's a kind of third party thing that is actually validating that user for you. So you don't have to transfer your password and other thing to this identity provider. It will just use the existing one and passes a token. That token is eventually considered as the validation, and this is how it authenticates a user. Okay, so this is the second thing. Now third thing is a federate. So this term federate is nothing but just about a relationship that is built between an Active Directory and your authentication system. Okay, right now let's take this as in this way, like uh, a user is on one system. Here it is in the Active Directory of on-prem, and but the identity can be used to sign into other system, that is GCP here. Okay, without creating or managing a new password in the GCP. So that's the thing, that the relationship we are making is all we know as federate. And in this particular identity provider is this is a something that is actually allowing this to happen. Okay, now let's say I will quickly give you a simple example of the flow. Let's say you have to do a login thing. So when you federate a cloud entity with Active Directory, so what happens? Let's say your on-prem application is trying to access Gmail and Google Cloud, but Gmail and Google Cloud doesn't know about you. It doesn't understand who are you. So what in that case what happens? This the thing that I displayed you, this workload identity federation. What it does, it actually keeps your identity with the stores the identity in Google, but it doesn't store the password. So there is a software GCDS that is used to sync this thing. Now let's suppose you have, now like the Google has the username and password. Okay, so once someone tries to log into Google account, then Google will redirect the user. Where it will redirect? It will redirect to ADFS login page. Which page? It is the on-prem application, Active Directory Federation Service. It will direct user to that page, that screen. Now user enter the credential in his own environment. So now Google is, what Google is waiting? Google is just waiting for the token. He just validated like, yeah, this user is actually in my system, because you already have provided that to the Google already. So Google validates that, then redirect that user to ADFS login page, that is your on-prem. Now you enters the details and credentials are matched uh, at the on-prem level. So user will, once user is authenticated, then this system, that your on-prem system when sends back a SAML token, it could be a OIDC, I mean JSON token as well. So once Google receives that token, Google trusts that token and allow that user to log in. So this is how this whole flow work. Here the identity provider is the on-prem. So I think you understood the flow and how this thing works. So this is also important to understand from the exam perspective, this flow. And I think you guys are able to understand this. And I think by this I am almost covered the maximum things in the IAM. And yeah, that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like this video and my other videos as well. Please subscribe my YouTube channel. Thank you so much.